Greetings, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Solutionaries here on Regen Media TV channel. I'm your host, Michael DiMartino. This is one of our different shows that we present, and this week we're focused really on solutionaries, which of course, looking around, it's easy to see that the world needs more solutions for some of these problems, issues, and challenges that are happening. Today, I'm really honored to have an opportunity to speak with Lynn Fang. Lynn is an amazing solutionary who is working with soil. So let's say her work is from the ground up. And we're happy to talk with her. She's based in the LA area, and I met her through some of the networking regarding our soil summit coming up February 21st and 22nd. The 21st will be on the ground, literally in Altadena, doing some soil testing and some remediation education practices on an actual property that was affected by the fire. And then Sunday will be virtual. But more important is that we've connected and took time to look at her website. Really impressive, the level of work she's doing. So I'd like to welcome from SoilWise, Lynn Fang. So welcome to Solutionaries.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on here. Yeah, I am a community soil scientist. My background is specialized more so in compost systems and farming, and also have kind of grown from there to do native plant gardens, habitat restoration, and soil health monitoring in all different types of systems. And SoilWise was created about 2 years ago, and we are very connected to community and friends in Altadena. We've done a lot of community permaculture work there as well, gardening and other creative work. And so we really felt called to support the post-fire soil remediation work. And it was a lot of education. We've done some lead bioremediation work previously in soils. Any kind of urban gardener, community farmer is going to run into lead contamination issues at some point sooner or later if they're doing that around Los Angeles. So it was something we were starting to learn about and practice anyway. But we, after the fire, learned about way more contaminants and have been supporting the community with contaminant testing and bioremediation work.
Amazing. So I looked at your website, and again, you have quite a menu of offerings, starting with ecological landscape and garden design, soil health analytics, community education and advocacy. And of course, you also, besides hands-on work that you're doing, I see that you're also offering various courses, educational programs, and that you're also a certified native plant landscaper. So just to start with, let's just kind of take each one of those items just for a quick moment. Can you give people a little synopsis of what is ecological landscaping and gardening? What does that consist of for those who might not know?
Yeah, ecological landscaping, I mean, it's based on permaculture. Like I have my permaculture design certificates and have been incorporating those practices in community gardens and farms for many years. And so have kind of taken that into the residential landscaping space. And we do a lot of like lawn to native garden projects. And so we're incorporating water harvesting, runoff capture design, connecting roof runoff into our swales, and kind of planting riparian plants in those areas to facilitate water infiltration, and filtering any contaminants or excess nutrients from that water. We're practicing, healthy soil building practices like sheet mulching, using kind of specialized soil amendments to support native plant establishment in these disturbed urban soils. And we're very focused on using plants that help bring in pollinators as well. We also do things like permeable hardscape and earthen structures, such as earthen benches. So more natural ecological ways to have a gathering space. We also incorporate those types of features.
Wow, really a full spectrum. I actually, years ago, I got a permaculture design certification. I took a program at one of the colleagues of Bill Mollison, who's kind of the grandfather of permaculture. But amazing. I love what you said about water too, because I know, especially with a lot of the fires that are happening, a lot of people don't realize the importance of regenerating groundwater. What's the mantra? Slow it, spread it, sink it, right? And a lot of times, even in urban areas, water goes into a sewage drain and then goes out to the ocean. So we've come to find, as you know, a lot of times these fires, because the landscape has been kind of so arid and dry and depleted of water, it makes things much more combustible. So I also see you do soil health analytics. When you look at that, what are some of the things you find both in the biology of soil? Maybe it's there's too much of this or not enough this, but what are you finding, especially in the LA area?
Yeah, so we do offer like general soil health testing and assessments too. We developed our soil microscopy program. I also still do work at Ellie Compost, and it has grown out of Ellie Compost community microscopy programs, which are more community education focused. But we do offer microscope assessments and education, other types of biological assessments and education as well. And we can help people with just general soil nutrient testing, soil organic matter testing, and helping them basically improve their soil structure, their soil organic matter, their biological diversity through various interventions and treatments on the soil. And as well as above ground design that also influences soil health. So we target the system from a systems approach essentially. Um, so we have worked with, community gardens, urban farmers on that kind of thing. And in terms of the post-fire work, something that we see a lot of, and so we're offering the contaminant testing and the interpretation around that as well. In the Altadena area, certain areas have high levels of lead. So kind of closer to the mountains, you have less kind of heavy metals. And kind of down more, there is more concentration of structures. You have higher levels of lead and metals. And that's because a lot of these homes were built in the early 1900s when they were still using lead paint. And there's also just like legacy contamination from leaded gasoline, or, just dumping debris or excess paint like into the soil in those properties. There could have been old vehicles that were leaky and leaking things like motor oils into the soil. So that's also something that we have detected in terms of the hydrocarbons is the longer chain motor oils, which makes sense. Those are harder to degrade. They're longer chains, but you can use beneficial microbes to degrade them. There's a little bit of arsenic around. Arsenic is really tricky because it is like naturally occurring in our geology, and it also is brought in through pesticide and herbicide use, which is pretty like rampant, especially in public spaces. There's a lot of use of pesticides and herbicides, or even in schools on like landscaping. And so there's a lot of that introduced in our environment. It's been detected in the firefighting foams as well, which were, I don't think they were directly used on residential properties here, but they were sprayed in the mountains. And so they can still come in through runoff as well. And there are other sources of, human-made sources of arsenic. So it's kind of a balancing act in terms of you typically we are seeing like a little bit, some levels are higher, some levels are extremely high, but mostly there's like a small amount of arsenic around, and we still try to treat for it. We offer that as an option, just because it is kind of a risk factor in chronic illness. And then we want to be developing and refining our strategies and treatment methods for remediating arsenic. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's interesting, not to interrupt, I kind of cut my teeth. I was a journalist up in Nevada City, California, and around my property there were several fires. Very rural area. One was a PG&E transformer, but around that same time is when the Paradise fire occurred. So as a journalist, I went there a couple of days after the fire, and we literally had to wear respirators because people don't realize everything you're saying. Homes burning, materials, gardening products, household products, cars, tires, electric cars, lithium batteries, all of this plus the legacy of whatever contaminants have been there. In Paradise, there is, of course, the history of gold mining, which some of the mines were exposed, and things like mercury and others. So I want to not scare people, but I do want to emphasize the importance of like even right now in Altadena, people are like, the fire's over, I just want to get back to my home. And some people are starting to build back without remediating or testing the soil. Typically, the methodology right now held by the response, whether it's county or federal, is, and of course we know FEMA's been defunded, is they typically will come in and scrape the top 6 inches of topsoil and drag it off to be dumped somewhere else. But they're not really treating the problem, they're kind of just removing the top of it. So this is a very serious issue as far as community health and long-term exposure to these things. So one thing I really wanted to emphasize is what you said when I was working on the Paradise project, that we learned that a lot of these fire retardants have forever chemicals in them. And, it's like in some way adding insult to injury when you have this fire and then they're adding these retardants and chemicals to them, which really contaminate the environment. So let's pivot a little bit. I know you have a great presentation. You want to take us through some of the visual aids and a little deeper dive of some of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, sounds great. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, PFAS is also a concern, and we are also trying to test methods for remediating PFAS as well, and we've had some positive results from that. But yeah, I wanted to present a little bit. I am also organizing with some local nonprofits. As the Dina Soil Project, and we're a small collective of including Fire Poppy Project, which is a 501c3 that has been doing mutual aid indoor smoke remediation since the fires in collaboration with day laborers. And another 501c3 is called Community Compound, which has been offering support for families in need after the fire and connecting them to resources and things and supplies that they may need. And they are also really wanting to contribute to soil bioremediation as well. And of course, SoilWise is part of that group as well to offer that kind of more technical expertise and advice around soil contaminant testing and bioremediation. And collectively, our vision and goal is to offer free, accessible education and resources around soil contaminant testing and bioremediation for low-income families. And so far, we've been doing that by hosting community bioremediation workdays. We've hosted about 4 of them so far, where we come to a site and gather community and volunteers and helpers to support in, spreading compost and mulch, spraying a compost tea or extract, planting phytoremediation plants. We may be spreading other sequestration or bioremediation amendments like zeolites or biochar, depending on what the space needs. And we're also trying to integrate free soil testing and community healing activities during those work days. So we're really trying to integrate a lot of outreach and connection and support along with the education and the bioremediation work. And we've also hosted a 2-day workforce development training with the National Day Labor Organizing Network. So that was for a group of day laborers so that they could be more empowered to also serve in this way for their communities. And we've also partnered with local colleges to offer free community soil testing events and they have a device called an XRF, X-ray fluorescence device, that can basically test for heavy metals in a matter of minutes. And there's maybe a little bit of variability with that, but it will at least tell you if you're above safety level, if you're near safety level, or if you're below. So that's like the most critical information, and it's fast. So it makes it easy to get a lot of soils tested that way. And our goal is to fundraise to host more of these workforce development trainings, community bioremediation workdays, free soil testing events, community healing ceremonies. And we also really do want to launch a community soil health resource hub where we can kind of aggregate supplies and materials that the community can access for their bioremediation projects. We've launched a crowdfunding campaign here that you can check out and learn more about what we're up to. And these are some photos from some of our community work days. This is the XRF device from our free soil testing event. We're also getting coffee burlap bags to make compost filter socks. Those can filter contaminants from runoff water that may be introducing new contamination to a site. So these are all of our kind of community work days. And this is just a chart I created to just look at all of the contaminants. We're using all of these materials in our life, society, culture, and so that's why they're showing up after a fire in this concentrated form. Of course, lead is one of the primary contaminants that's around. There's also other types of heavy metals. We have total petroleum hydrocarbons and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Those are a combusted form of hydrocarbons. Volatile organic compounds are a little bit more a concern for air quality after fire, and they do dissipate quickly, so we're not as concerned about them now. But these more persistent pollutants are still around, dioxins and furans, which come from combustion of plastics and PVC, as well as PFAS, which comes from Teflon carpets, upholstery, even firefighting foam. And so we do test for these persistent pollutants too. It is much more expensive, but some people are interested in doing that, and we're interested in developing bioremediation techniques for them as well.
And I'd like to just add, I want to acknowledge you for your leadership. When we did our big 5-day Earthstock Summit back last year in October, we had different presenters and panels on this subject matter, and then people got inspired, and then they kind of afterwards, maybe 1 in 50 actually continued to engage. So I want to acknowledge you, because I know to get community engagement, it can be very challenging. People can get excited about something, but then, I'm busy, or I have to do this, or they kind of go off to the next thing. So I want to acknowledge that. And also, one thing that you said, this Soil Summit is part of a larger series that I'm doing as far as a project, and the documentary is called Build Back Green LA. It actually came out of not just the Paradise Fire, but one of my colleagues, Professor Alan Troutner, was the co-founder of Earth Day 55 years ago. Anyways, he had moved to Lahaina to start a sustainability hub, and of course, we all know shortly after that, the Lahaina fire happened. So I'm bringing this up because what we've learned is the amazing work you're doing, but if people not only roll up their sleeves and get involved, we can't just count on civic leadership or government to bring all the solutions. So I want to commend you. But also, we found that people making better choices about what we purchase, what we consume, how much trash we create, things like the importance of plastics and recycling. And again, all of these little decisions that we make in our own microenvironment, when things like this happen, really do have an accelerated and more negative impact. So, I'm saying this because I think in the future, people should look at what they purchase, what they consume, and how they construct their life. And right now, we are looking at some very high-level natural building techniques that are not only fireproof, but when these things happen, you don't have a hazardous waste site after the fire. So I just want to kind of add that to what you're saying. But amazing leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to emphasize that too. There's from the policy side, they want to say like, oh, we only want to, fund cleanup that's fire related. Like the legacy contamination is not our responsibility, not our problem. But for the residents in the community, like that's something they have to deal with no matter what. So, I honestly like it doesn't matter if it's fire related or legacy. It's like we should be taking care of the toxins in our environment. That's a collective responsibility. And my hope is that we can stop using these toxic materials in the manufacturing of all of these products. And thankfully, we have phased out lead, but we're still, experiencing the impacts of that. But things like PFAS are still being used and produced on a mass scale. So if we can find cleaner materials to use in our manufacturing, then we don't have to deal with these problems downstream, in our waste stream, in our soil, in our compost. So I mean, I feel like there needs to be that kind of work done too to change how we're creating these materials as well. And about the community involvement, I think it's just like people are still dealing with these impacts. They're still rebuilding. The residents are still dealing with these impacts. So that's why, we're still able to get community engagement is like people are still dealing with this problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have about another 5 to 8 minutes left, and really enjoying your presentation here. Very concise and very educational for those who watch this and need to get more information.
Yeah, I just want to share, there's like a couple more slides around some of the bioremediation principles and mechanisms. We're using different tools like compost, biochar, fungi, zeolites, plants, other types of beneficial microbes or cultivation techniques, as well as like logs and wood chips to cap and whatever it is, sequester, decompose, remove the contaminants. We're using all different techniques to target all of these different types of contaminants. And we're trying to use techniques that can target and treat like as many contaminants as possible in one go. And we have demonstrated successful case studies in lead and arsenic phytoextraction, sequestration, and reduction on various sites, the hydrocarbon and PAH, as well as PFAS degradation with beneficial microbes that we're cultivating. And we are testing out a sacrificial compost pile for these phytoremediation plants at the Altadena Community Garden. So so there's some data here we can share from there. The the northwest corner of the garden was most impacted because it was right next to burned property. And honestly, the lead level wasn't so high, but it was above 80, it was around 90. And because it's a food producing garden, community space, we want to get that down even lower, below safety level. And so, we did our compost, native soil fungi cultivation, and phytoremediation plants. So this picture shows our plants over the summer, and we took them out. This was started in May, and then we took them out in October. So it was about 5 months of treatment, and that post-test was very, very successful. It went down about 65 parts per million in that lead content. And some other areas were not as impacted originally and they weren't treated, as heavily. So there's very little change in some of these areas just to compare to this particular corner that we prioritize the treatment for. So that was very successful. And we've also, seen that at other sites that we've worked with as well. So yeah, you can stay in touch with us. These are the Instagram pages for the Dina Soil Project currently, and this is all of my contact information if you'd like to learn more. I am teaching an online course on soil microscopy, which you can find on the website, and that's coming up February to March. It's kind of provides like a comprehensive introductory overview to identifying microbes, understanding what they mean for soil health and compost quality, and gives you all the basic information so you can go and do your own microbial assessments.
Wow, very in-depth and I would say full spectrum. So question, are you involved, are you doing anything in the Palisades area? Are you primarily focused on Altadena? Because I know I attended some city council meetings there and there was very little remediation happening. Some areas still had debris piles. And of course, we've been looking at the contamination of Santa Monica Bay, which has had a devastating effect on some of the marine life there. So are you or do you know of anyone who's doing work in that area? Are you available to work in that area?
I have done a little bit of soil testing there. I think our work was growing so much, and we're still developing the systems to be able to manage so many projects. We've decided to just focus more locally on Altadena and Pasadena. But I think we are open to supporting Palisades projects, and we can offer consulting. But we can kind of figure it out. If people need support in the Palisades, we can certainly find ways to work with them.
Okay, great. So thank you for that screen share. We'll pivot back to us here. And I'm also excited because as a fellow permacultural designer person, I'm very passionate about what I call full spectrum regenerative solutions. And a big part of that is food security, water security. And we are planning something up in the Ojai area. And of course, right now, it's amazing just in the last few years, the progress we've seen about the awareness of soil, not just adding more chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and insecticides and then things that have come to light, like the impact of things like glyphosate. And also behind the scenes, there's things like Syngenta that are doing hybrid seeds and Monsanto, who's really pushing the whole Roundup product. So, there's kind of this push and pull between the marketplace and corporate interests and finding a quicker, easier way. But as you know, the longer, really devastating and health impacts that happen when we don't do things that are more aligned with nature's intelligence and doing. So, it is kind of a lifestyle shift, a cultural shift, but all of these things that you said, there are solutions, just you have to do the homework and you have to make the decision to start doing that and not going what I call old paradigm techniques that we're finding out have, a lot of them have very negative impacts on society, the environment, and people's health, our children, our pets, the watershed, all of these things, the land. So again, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to chatting more and continuing to potentially form a strategic alliance because that's what we do every day with Earthstack Enterprises. And as a lot of projects that come our way, it's always a matter of these alliances and who is the best people to do the work. So thank you so much. For those of you who maybe caught the second half of the broadcast, I've been talking with Lynn Fang in the LA area from SoilWise, and her website is soilwise.earth. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon, and we will be broadcasting this as part of the Soil Summit. I know that you weren't potentially able to make it in person, but thank you for your leadership and your community engagement and the solutions that you bring.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity to share the work and your efforts to kind of connect people and projects together. And yeah, I would be interested in sharing or participating in the Ojai Pharma conference as well. So, thank you.
Fantastic. All right, we'll talk soon. And thanks everyone for joining another episode of Solutionaries. Have a great day.
Talk soon.